think we're recording now. Okay, very good. Well, welcome and good evening, everybody, to the Norman Chamber and Norman Next first candidate forum for this upcoming City Council elections. Just a few announcements before we get into the meat of this evening's discussion. I want to remind everybody, of course, the most important thing, that the election is February the 9th, and that is for wards 1, 3, 5, 7, and also Ward 2 will be having a special election on the same day. We are excited to be able to host all of the ward candidates prior to the election. As you can imagine, we're doing this virtually. As you can see, we'd love to be in person somewhere, but due to just for health reasons and such, we're going to be doing this virtually. And frankly, it gives us all an opportunity to view this recording at a later date, maybe share it with friends or family who couldn't attend tonight and watch it live. I'd like to also just, we'll lay out a few ground rules. We have Chris and Brandi with us this evening. They each know that we have about 10 questions that we're going to go over here once we get started. They each have 3 minutes to answer the questions. And we've got some old-fashioned timekeepers here, so they're going to get the yellow and red card at the appropriate time. But we're excited for this discussion, and the Chamber is very excited to be able to co-host this event with Norman Next. Norman Next is Norman's premier young professionals organization. I'm here with Tyler. Tyler, you want to introduce yourself and talk about Next a little bit?
Sure. So my name is Tyler McManaman. I'm the chair for 2021. And really, Norman Next is just a group of young professionals aged 21 to 40. At 41, we kick you out and you got to get more involved with the chamber. But no, we're trying to, make Norman the best town it can be, and really encourage a place for young professionals to live, work, and play.
Awesome. Well, Tyler and I are going to moderate this evening's discussion. We're going to go back and forth in asking all the questions that we have prepared. And again, I'd like to remind everybody that might be tuning in that you can share this. I would encourage you to go ahead and share this on your own Facebook page, and then tune in at a later date. This will be on both the Chambers and Norman Next Facebook page. You can go back and watch it. It'll also be on our YouTube page. We're going to do that with all 5 of the candidate forums we have, because we really want everybody to be as informed as possible as they enter this election cycle. And a little, I guess, extra special thing for tonight is that Friday, January the 15th, is the deadline to register to vote for the February 9th election. So before you can vote, you have to get registered. Make sure you register to vote by Friday, the deadline of Friday, February the 15th this week. Okay, so let's get into the questions. Again, each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer each of these questions. I've yet to even introduce our candidates yet. We are thrilled to have Brandi Studley with us, and also Chris Lewis.
Thank you.
Each of them for being willing to serve and put their name on the line to run for office. We applaud and congratulate each one of you for stepping up to do this.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get into the questions. If elected, and this first question is going to go to Brandi, and then we'll flip flop here. But Brandi, to you first. If elected, what is your top priority for the city at large, in your ward specifically?
Public transportation is something that I really want to focus on, and that really affects Ward 1, especially with the closing of Smart Saver being the main grocery store kind of for the hub for Ward 1. We really need to have some additional bus routes added, specifically back in Turnberry. So a lot of those people that live back in the Turnberry or at the back of Oakhurst would have to walk to Smart Saver. And that's still quite a bit of a far track with groceries there and back. So now that Smart Saver's gone, they can walk the back route to Walmart. But again, that's more than a mile to walk. So we really just need to focus on trying to get some additional transportation. I've talked to quite a few constituents that have also mentioned having covered bus stops. So when it's raining, they can have a dry place to sit while they're waiting for work. And having some additional stops, so connection stops, would also cut down on some of the time that it takes to get there. So that's really something that I want to focus on and partner with some of the other council members and some good work that they've already been doing.
Very good. Chris, same question to you. If elected, what is your top priority for the city at large in your ward specifically?
Scott, and I appreciate the question. For the top priority for the city at large, being a moderate, a centrist, that is bringing the city back to fiscal responsibility. We shouldn't be scrambling at this point in time, trying to find $22 million that had been overspent. Another priority specifically for this ward certainly would be stormwater, as it is citywide, but transportation, public transportation is certainly something that this city is moving toward. I believe, though, that public transportation is going in the wrong way when many citizens have reached out to me saying we're seeing empty buses driving around at enormous cost, and move more toward a plan or do an investigatory study to figure out, is it more cost effective to have point-to-point service, meaning send out vouchers, such some of the larger cities throughout America are doing. So it's Uber or Lyft or those point-to-point services, not having to worry about the sheltered bus stops, but taking them from their doorstep actually to the business. And so that would be two of the main priorities. First and foremost, getting our city back into a fiscal responsible manner.
Thank you both. Tyler?
So my first question is, Chris, you'll answer this one first. Please describe your philosophy with regards to economic development, most specifically for job retention and job expansion.
So Tyler, I appreciate that question as well. Economic development is the foundation which drives the city's ability to function. It's what drives our sales tax revenue, and the partnership with the Economic Development Authority that goes out and searches for good long-term concrete businesses that are willing to invest in Norman and employ multiple individuals. That is paramount, and that is first and foremost what we want to bring into this city. That's big box stores do a great job in producing tax revenue, sales tax revenue, but to have a long-term stream, the businesses such as Hitachi, Cisco, those are the businesses that also bring employment and new residents into the city, and that will what strengthens the growth and the foundation of our city moving forward into 2025, 2030, and beyond.
Same question to you, Brandi. You want me to repeat it?
Yeah, if you don't mind, the last.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So please describe your philosophy with regards to economic development, most specifically towards job retention and job expansion.
So I feel like we do have a lot of great businesses here in Norman already, and I am all for new business development. I am really concerned about our environment, though, and the footprint that we're leaving. And so I do feel like Norman has a lot of empty space that we could utilize, of empty buildings or land that has already been developed. And so trying to reuse some of that and rethink what that would be. So that's bringing jobs as well to the east side is something that I really want to focus on. I think that we do have we're the highest densely populated ward, and we have a lot of working class citizens over here that work two jobs sometimes. So just getting more jobs over to the east side of town, I think, is a real strong focus for me. And I think it's great for our city, like Chris said, to especially boost up our tax money that we get and our revenue that we get, especially right now with COVID. We definitely need to increase our tax revenue for sure.
Okay, on to our third question. Brandi, we'll start with you again. Do you believe that Norman is experiencing a long-term problem with sales tax revenue? If yes, how do you propose to fix the problem? If no, why not?
I don't think that there is a long-term problem. I think pre-COVID, we were seeing quite a bit of growth within our economy. I know that they had planned on just consistent growth year over year with some of our budgeting items. So I don't really think that that is a problem at this point. We now have to figure out how do we recover from COVID, and that's kind of a question that we're all trying to figure out right now. I think that, like I said, just bringing some more businesses into the area will help with some of that over on the east side. Obviously, we have a lot of great businesses already that are on the west side, but just getting to open the economy back up, hopefully once we get our vaccines out and everyone's masking and doing what they're supposed to do, our economy will start picking up and driving again. So.
Thank you. Chris, the same question to you. Do you believe that Norman is experiencing a long-term problem with sales tax revenue? If yes, how do you propose to fix the problem? If no, why not?
Scott, I would agree with my opponent that no, I don't believe there's a long-term sales tax revenue issue. I believe we're in a time of COVID. Certainly we have to work within those parameters. But again, I do believe we truly have a long-term issue with debt and incurring debt. That's when we have a downturn, as my father used to say to me when I was in college, you can't have a steak dinner on a hamburger budget. So as a city, we're continuing to spend more and more and more revenue without that tax revenue coming in, then that's putting us into an overall deficit when Anthony Francisco, our excellent chief financial officer, finance director, is told you have to come up with the money and says to our council, no, you spend it. It's your responsibility to come up with it. I think that's where the true issue comes. It's not that we don't have a solid tax base. We do. We have one that definitely needs improvement and growth. We need to curtail our spending and get that under control.
Agreed.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brandi. So question number 4, do you believe that Norman should be more proactive to compete with surrounding communities like Moore, Edmond, Mustang that generate sales tax or offer quality jobs? If yes, how? If no, why not?
And Scott, I believe that, or Tyler, I believe that's mine.
Yes, yeah, that goes to you, Chris.
So yes, I do believe that there is an issue with Norman losing many jobs and new businesses to other cities. And having sat on the planning commission and dedicated over a decade of my life volunteering to that, the zoning ordinances that we currently have in place definitely need to be revamped so that they're more business friendly, because that is what is losing good jobs, good businesses that will generate great ongoing tax revenue from the city of Norman onto Moore or Midwest City or other cities. How do we do that? Take a good hard look at our zoning ordinances, have a commission that brings everyone to the table from both sides, those who are environmentalists, those who are developers, and let's figure out a solution of how we make it equitable for everyone, as well as keeping in mind we have a stormwater issue to deal with, and as Brandi said, refurbishing existing development to make it appealable to businesses to come into Norman, stay in Norman, and thrive in Norman.
Thank you, Chris. Brandi, same question to you. Do you
I'm going to agree. Go ahead.
You read it?
I was going to say, I agree a lot with what Chris is stating on there. I do think that if we maybe can offer some tax breaks incentives to certain businesses, for example, if they do use buildings that have already been built and redevelop those areas, I think that we definitely need to come together across all tables and talk about what we can do to build business, because it seems like there's this big divide of what, some in the city think we do, business developers think that we could do. So I think that there's some middle ground there for sure. And we need to be able to sit down and look at all different budgeting aspects of that and what it could do to our city as far as sales tax and business growth. But I definitely love the idea of being able to sit down and everyone bringing some ideas to the table and being open to accepting and compromising what each other has to say.
Thank you, Brandi.
Okay. Next question, Brandy, we'll start with you on this. Studies have shown that Norman has the highest cumulative development cost, connection fees, and most restrictive building ordinances in the region. How do you propose to rectify this?
To be honest, I would definitely need to do some homework on this. I don't really know a whole lot about that. And I would be curious to see what the reasoning is behind that. So I think it would be a good idea to, again, look at just see what some of those restrictions are, and try to see if there's, again, some way that we can compromise to allow businesses to come in. We have to continue to grow as our population grows. So if we don't have places for our citizens to work and to shop, they're going to go somewhere else. So we just have to figure out a way to come together at the table and continue to grow our city.
Thank you. Chris, same question to you. Studies have shown that Norman has the highest cumulative development costs, connection fees, and most restrictive building ordinances in the region. How do you propose to rectify this?
First, Scott, I would concur with that study, having, again, sat on the Planning Commission for over a decade and volunteering there. We do have an enormous number of costs that go into play when an entity is coming into our city wanting to spend millions of dollars and incurring hundreds of thousands of dollars prior just to getting the actual overall development through Planning Commission and City Council, and sometimes can take over a year period of time. To that, I would say that we have an outstanding, very knowledgeable planning director, Jane Hudson. I believe working with her, the city manager, as well as developers in our community is the key to bringing everyone together and figuring out how we can lower these costs and make them more equitable. And I believe that's where we really need to start as well, is to figure out what equitable looks like. What are we competing with our sister cities? And by doing that, then we can bring Norman in line without undercutting any tax revenue that those might generate, but also make it more favorable, again, to bring those long-term businesses in, those housing developments in, where people are more likely to, and willing to come and stay and live in Norman, work here, and thrive here.
Thank you, Chris. Y'all, we are flying through these questions. I am, you guys came ready to go. Good job. So we're officially halfway done with our questions. So you guys are doing really well.
Tyler, I'm gonna give you the red card right now.
Here I am. I'm filibustering it, make it try to last it long. Question number 6. The city of Norman is facing considerable budget shortfalls in future fiscal years. Do you have any recommendations or opinions to help curb the potential budgetary crisis for this city? And Chris, this is for you.
And Tyler, as I said before, when the city is searching for $22 million just because of knee-jerk reactions, what the city has to get back to is what are our fundamental basic needs? And instead of funding all of these wants that, you know, it's nice to have a lot of wants and make our city beautiful and nice, but when you have a downturn, that's the time we all, whether it's a home such as myself or anyone in Ward 1 or any of the wards in the city of Norman, we have to tighten our belt a little bit. So that is definitely not the time to continue frivolous spending. Let's focus on the basic services, make sure those are in place, and stop robbing from Peter to pay Paul. When we're robbing from the pothole fund to keep the lights on in City Hall, I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. So what do I recommend? I recommend strong belt tightening when it comes to the budget. First and foremost, I have said, and I stand on fiscal responsibility. We have got to bring our city back to fiscal responsibility, because if we're overspending now, and certainly in the state of Oklahoma, you cannot incur a deficit ongoing. But if we're overspending now, when revenue comes back, it's going to be the same situation. So we've got to get the budget back under control and spend on our needs. And then what is left over, that's where the wants would come into play.
Thank you, Chris. Same question to you, Brandi. I'll repeat it. The city of Norman is facing considerable budget shortfalls in fiscal years. Do you have any recommendations or opinions to help curb the potential budgetary crisis for the city?
Absolutely. So for the last 8 years, I have ran multi-million-dollar dental practices across the city, across the state. And so I am very, very aware of how budgets work and knowing how to work within those budgets. And I do agree with Chris. It's time that we tighten it up. I mean, we need to look and do a true audit and figure out, where are we spending money? Where do we need to pull back from? Because especially right now with COVID, we don't have money just to frivolously spend. And so we have to really be lean in our spending habits and focus on the needs, the requirements versus the wants. And then once you get, I mean, in my business, we couldn't spend money if we didn't have it. I'm not going to spend, if I didn't make this money per month and have this exact profit, then I didn't know what I was going to spend the next month. If I'm short, I'm not going to spend. If I'm over, then I can save that or put that towards something that we want as a goal for the practice. So I feel like it would be the same within the city. You need to look and see what you made last month or last quarter before you're just going to dive in and commit to spending it on something else. And so really just doing a true budget audit and getting a feel for what we're spending and where that shortfall is something that I really want to focus whenever if I get elected.
Thank you. Next question to you, Brandi, is, if elected, how will you expedite and fully fund the remaining Norman Ford projects, ensuring the will of those are delivered? Your background: Norman Ford was overwhelmingly adopted by the voters 5 years ago, roughly. $150 million package, a little over that, quality of life initiative. We still have some critical projects remaining that in the funding has not been identified for those yet, particularly soccer, baseball, softball, adult football, some things of that nature. So how will you expedite and fully fund the remaining Norman Ford projects?
So I feel like our soccer fields that we just invested millions of dollars in that are over off of Robinson and 12th are sufficient in the moment, because we don't need to just be throwing money once again without seeing what we actually have coming in. I feel like some of those things are wants versus needs. We have a soccer field. So do we need to build a new one? Not at this particular moment. We may have other things that are more necessary for us to spend or budget that money towards. I am glad that we got the senior center up and going. I think it's unfortunate that we used COVID money to do that, but I think that we need to really look at ways of raising money and coming up with a long-term goal to fund these projects, and not just jump into it and then commit to whatever long-term goal that is to raise these funds, whether that's through taxing or whatever the case may be, and then not spend or commit to doing something until we have that money in hand.
Chris, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I appreciate it, Scott. I wrote it down for my knowledge. So how do we expedite the Norman Ford moving forward? So when Norman Ford was voted into place and the tax revenue was voted into place to fund those projects, many of them were completed. Some of them ran over budget. Some of them had surpluses. But as we had a downturn in COVID with sales tax revenue coming in, that's certainly we have to pull back. So I agree with Brandi. Those projects must be completed. That was the voters' initiative and wish. That is what the revenues have been put in place for. However, are we going to do it overnight? Those projects were prioritized. So far, the Norman Public Library main campus has been completed. The Norman East Side Library has been completed. Many other projects have been completed, such as the soccer fields, but we have much more work to do. That's, as we know, our colleagues in Oklahoma City, they certainly didn't do their project overnight. And I think that's what the methodical approach to budgeting is all about. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It is, where can we start? Where are we going? And continue to make that happen long-term and consistently. I would agree with my colleague that using COVID money for a senior citizen center, in my view of how COVID money was actually termed that it could be used, was an outright violation of law. And we shall see how that turns out. But I believe the senior citizen is long overdue. That's voters have said many times how they feel about that. But to use COVID money to fund that project, I believe was a misuse of funds.
Thank you.
I think Chris and I agree on a lot more than people realize.
And we did not get these questions in advance.
It's the business mindset, right?
100%.
All right, so question number 8 has to do with quality of life. As a young professional, it's really important for us to have a great quality of life for for us and our families, especially as we're growing, with our little ones. So my question is, as a young professional here in Norman, it is important for the quality of life to be continually improved upon for the citizens of this town. A few years ago, we passed Norman Forward, which was a great step towards improving our quality of life, but those projects are potentially underfunded, as we've discussed, and especially for what the public kind of expected when these passed. What quality of life initiative do you propose to keep us on the leading edge in the region to make sure we are continuing to retain and attract young professionals to our wonderful town?
Tyler, I think that's an excellent question and not one that I can answer personally, because when you think about quality of life, what may be quality of life to me as an individual might be something completely different to someone else. So I would again just recreate the model that we did with Norman Ford, put together a panel across all ages, across all genders, across all ethnicities to figure out what truly was the survey of what quality of life improvements look like. To some, it may be park enhancements, while to others, it might be walking spaces. To some, it might be an aquatic center. So to say for me personally, what I would support, that's bringing an agenda, and that's something I will not do. The only agenda I'll bring to being a city council person is fiscal responsibility. Everything else is voters' responsibility for input. So I would definitely create the commission that's have people put input from all sides, have a survey done as we did initially with many projects we've done in this city, and take the consensus of where the money priority should be spent and how it's going to be funded.
Thank you. Brandi, did you want me to repeat the question?
No. So I do agree as well that it's up to the people. What do you guys want? What do you guys want to see in our city? I know I've heard a lot of people talk about, like Chris said, an aquatic center or bringing some type of water park that's closer into, I know we have one right there in Moore, but I've heard people that want one kind of off of Highway 9. What happened to Perfect Swing? So I feel like we do have a lot more room for some growth here. I do love the fact that we got Westwood Water Park developed and we have a lazy river now, yay. But I definitely think that there are a lot more room to hear what our citizens have to say here, because as we've seen, the efforts that we've put forward didn't pass in our last vote, wanting the aquatic center and the big gym basically over on the west side of town. So what is it that our citizens want? And I think that getting a pulse and taking a survey and seeing what people want is a great start.
Thank you.
Second to the last question. Brandi, if elected, how will you encourage partnerships with community organizations such as the Chamber, Norman Next, the university, our different county governments, state governments that are here, Norman Public Schools, or Norman Tech, Norman Regional Hospital? There's a lot of entities that are good partners, but how would you encourage those partnerships with those organizations?
So I've worked with the Chamber before and Norman Next, actually, as a business manager for a dentist office here in the city. And so I think when we all come together for the greater good of the city, whether that's through community outreach or doing like a fun event like the Norman Music Festival or things like that, I think bringing everyone to the table and letting them, display their product or having an idea, having a voice at the table is what really helps. I know right now I run a little organization here in town. We have a lot of volunteers and we do a lot of partner work with some of the other organizations like Food and Shelter, Transition House, things like that. So we do have, I know how to listen to other people's ideas and try to get everyone's voice at the table.
Thank you. Chris?
Scott, I think the key word is truly listening. That's when I sat on planning commission, and this is one of the things that I'm really somewhat frustrated with about our current council, is there's not a recommendation now made by our planning director and the planning department regarding items moving forward. A complete disregard from the planning commission's recommendation to city council, and planning commission is the state mandated commission on every city. So what is the first step? That is bringing people together and listening to what the recommendations are instead of pushing forward your own personal agenda just because it's the want that you have and not the need that the city has. So again, how would I do that? I think everyone in our city is phenomenal, great citizens, a wonderful community that at the heart work together. Many times when you go across this country and you say you're from Oklahoma, or gosh, oh my word, the people in Oklahoma are just so nice. They embrace you, they hug you. That is what the foundation of our city is about. And we've got to bring that healing process back. And doing that, that is absolutely applicable to the organizations such as the Chamber, Next, Ford. It's the partnership. We shouldn't be antagonizing people where they just walk away from the table. That's why the city currently is in a space that it doesn't even have a franchise agreement with OG&E, who, if they had chose, could have just left us all without power during the recent ice storm, but they didn't because they're good partners. We as a city need to come back and be those good partners as well, and that would be a priority.
Thank you. Before we get to the last question, I just wanted to thank you both for taking time to be a part of this and taking time to run. It's quite an accomplishment, and just it's a lot to take on just to run. So I appreciate you both being willing to do it. And last question, what are your thoughts on the current caustic dialogue in our community, particularly on social media, and how will you listen and lead on this issue?
Tyler, this one truly hits home. The other day, and I'm someone that does not have social media. I have an email, I have a phone. I enjoy looking people in the eye and talking with them one-on-one. Is social media here to stay? Yes. However, I find that I get so much more information when someone is truly sharing as opposed to just grandstanding. I believe social media and the avenues that have come into place are very caustic, and I believe they're very divisive at many times within our community. So I absolutely look forward to talking with citizens one-on-one. That has been the joy of being a part of this campaign this year, and was a joy on the planning commission was getting to interact with everybody that attended at those commission meetings to be able to talk one-on-one with those that are answering doors and just voicing their overall concerns and questions. But also, I think on the flip side of that point is also the praise that you get along the way, just as you said, and to my opponent as well. Thank you for stepping up and running. I just wish that we could do it in a more appropriate way, where the other day I opened a Facebook page and I was referred to as a racist, which for people that know my stature in this city for over 33 years, the volunteer work that I've given in mental health and to the city, that couldn't be anything but the furthest thing from the truth. And as far as an extremist or a radical, absolutely not. I am a centrist. I'm a moderate. I registered independent for over a decade, and that is the reason, because I believe at the center is where we get things done, not on the far left, not on the far right. It's bringing everyone together at the table, and that's where it happens.
So I think that we live in a time where social media is prevalent. I mean, that's how we're going to get word of mouth out right now, especially in times of COVID. I too love to sit across the table or meet somebody face to face. And I do whenever I knock doors with my mask on and I step back and distance 6 feet. So I get to talk to people as well. But I also think it's really, really important to engage your audience in social media and to be open and willing to talk to them and address their concerns. I've had quite a few people that have private messaged me asking me questions. And I have always been open and available to them. I answer every question that's thrown at me, whether it makes me feel uncomfortable or not. And if I don't know the answer, I go and find it and then address that issue. In regards to some of the caustic dialogue, I know that on both sides, we both have followers and supporters that are extreme. And it is what it is. We can't control what people say or do on our behalf. And so it's just important, in my opinion, to, if you see that kind of behavior, I try not to engage or I try to shut it down. And if it continues to happen, I just simply say, I appreciate your talk, but I'm done engaging in this conversation and I move on. So I think it is really, really important to be on social media active in the climate that we're given. And a lot of people want to communicate that way in this given pandemic. So.
Okay, well, that wraps up our questions, but we've left a little bit of time for each of you to give a closing statement or comment. So, Brandi, we'll start with you. You have roughly a minute to wrap things up.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us both. As I mentioned, I have worked with the chamber in the past, and I really appreciate what you guys do here in our city and bringing businesses together to work together and help our community. I do want to say that, I do a lot of work in our community with our homeless citizens. And I have for quite a few years now. And I do a lot of outreach, even whenever I was a manager at the business. And so I think it's important to know that I didn't take this lightly whenever I decided to run. And I really love Ward 1 and I love the people here. We have one of the biggest diverse communities in our city. We have people from all walks of life, all income levels, and given my experiences in life, I feel like I'm able to connect with everyone at where they're at. And so I just really appreciate the opportunity and all the support that I'm getting out there. And I hope you guys vote for me on February 9th. So again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Chris, to you for your closing statement.
Scott, Tyler, first I want to say thank you to each of you, to Next and to the Chamber for hosting such a great opportunity for Brandi and I to share our views, to answer questions that our constituents can make the decision on, so that they can really see people in a live setting, in maybe a setting that they might not view as a biased setting, where some interviews that we may have done and will continue to do from either side of the aisle, because they have been so kind to invite, that we will do those interviews. That's so to that, I would say the thing that I bring to the table is the overall experience of dedicating volunteer service to this city for over 15 years. The experience alone is not a hit the ground and then learn. It's not an on-the-job training. It is actually start and go and have a background knowledge of that. That's in regards to fiscal responsibility. As Brandi stated, she is a business consultant with handling millions of dollars. And that's something that our city needs as well. With myself having a fiscal background and running a multi-million-dollar business, actually hundreds of millions of dollars, that's financial responsibility is not something that is new, and we've got to learn to work within our budget. Whether people realize it or not, that's our city is set up as a municipal corporation, and the responsibility of the city council is simply the board. Our city manager is the CEO, and we as electors are the stakeholders. So let our city manager manage, and that is something I will definitely encourage and empower our city manager to do, as opposed to the micromanagement that is currently going on in City Hall. Lastly, and I appreciate the support and the vote of every individual that believes in my candidacy, that I bring balance to our city, especially right now when it's so divisive, so polarized, and just almost radical on each end of the spectrum, regardless of where you fall. I prefer to fall right in the middle, to listen to everyone, to be open to new ideas, and certainly bring everyone to the table so that we bring balance and growth back to our city.
Thank you. And if anybody's looking to find out more information about each of you, your campaigns, where would they go? Brandi, for you, where would they go?
You can go to my website at brandyfornorman.com.
Okay, Chris?
And certainly there's a website, Chris Lewis Ward 1, or they can email me personally at chrislewis4ward1@gmail.com. I'd be happy to reach out, meet them eye to eye, face to face, answer any questions they have, and have an ongoing dialogue and conversation.
Very good. Well, thank you both. This is great. It's been fantastic. I think we need more of these kinds of opportunities for people to have genuine conversations with each other. I think one of the things we learned tonight is that we are closer to each other than further apart. Our community's not as fractured as some would have it believed. When we take time to get to know each other, I think that's an investment that we can all be proud of. So thank you each for being part of this evening. Tyler, thanks for co-hosting. And
Yes,
you're going to see Tyler and I again. So mark your calendars. Let me give you the date for the other upcoming forums. Ward 2 is going to be January the 20th. Ward 3, January the 25th. Ward 5 on the 27th. Ward 7 on February the 1st. All of those will begin at 5:30. We pledge to be wrapped up by 7:30 tonight. By 7. By 7 tonight, we were able to be very efficient and got done even within an hour. So, gold star for the two of you. You've set a very, very high bar. Yeah. Again, we want to encourage folks to look up both the candidates, become an educated voter. The barrier to vote is not high. You get registered, you can go vote. But wouldn't we all be better if when we went to the polls, we were an educated voter? And that's what the Chamber and Next has tried to provide each of us, is an opportunity to become educated this evening. Again, you can re-watch tonight's video on either of our Facebook pages. It's also going to be on YouTube. You can watch it there. We encourage you to tune in for the other forums. We're looking forward to those also. And I'll make a plug, because you both have mentioned small businesses and encouraging our economy to grow. And I'm going to applaud the City Council for creating the Small Business Grant Program. There's $1 million set aside for small businesses. The first round, I'm going to say first round because I'm optimistic, but they've set aside $1 million, and it looks as if 100 businesses are going to get a $10,000 grant, which is fantastic. There were over 600 businesses that applied for some kind of relief. And so what we at the Chamber are doing right now is encouraging the council to add an additional $2 million that they have available to them to that project. And so if you concur with us in that effort, I would encourage you to call up your council member, let them know you appreciate what they've done so far, but our local small businesses are hurting. We're not out of the woods yet. We still have a lot of ways to go here. And so the more help and support that we can provide, not only through the economic support through these grants, but individually what we can do to help support small business will go a very, very long way to ensure that that we finish 2021 even stronger than we're starting it right now. So that was my soapbox and my pitch. You guys could have given me the red card. I think Again, thank you all so much. Appreciate everybody. Be safe, be well, mask up, social distance, wash your hands, get vaccinated. There's a website out there where you can sign up to get vaccinated if you're so inclined, but get on the list if you're not in one of those first categories. So everybody take care and be well. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.